Politics is kind of like religion. Religious ideological frameworks are built into our political system. And I would say that it's very simple in this way. Libertarianism is essentially Taoism. It is the way things work. It is nature. It is not magical wishful thinking. It is just the way things are. And if you follow the Tao, if you understand Taoism, the way the river flows is the way you go. You don't try to fight the river going upstream. This principle is clearly marked in libertarian political ideology because it's about the path of least resistance. Let the market take care of itself. And this is the basis of reality. So we have to acknowledge and respect that to some degree. Otherwise, we will be constantly fighting going upstream and we will fail ultimately. Now, libertarianism alone is not a complete political philosophy because there are problems with letting things be the way they are, no matter how screwed up. Because nature isn't moral. Nature doesn't take care of people when they're old or sick. Nature just kills people off. And so we have to buffer against that law of nature, that natural law theory, with something else, kind of like Christianity, which has a lot of compassion, a lot of speaking of love and compassion for your fellow man, for your enemy even. That I would liken to the concept of socialism. That socialism is a primary political ideology of all tribes in human history. That they care about each other, that we take care of each other, we have burial rights, we value the old, we value the young, we take care of them so that we survive as a group better. That's the basis of socialism. I'm not talking about communism or other elements of socialism that you may see as dark and terrible. That's all debatable. But at the very base level, socialism is essentially like Christianity. It's like take care of each other, and it is rudimentary. It's almost as rudimentary as Taoism, as libertarianism, you know? It is the basis of how we live. So these two things together need to buffer against each other to create a balance. Where we fall in between Taoism and Christianity, or libertarianism and socialism, that's where we balance as a society. We toggle to find some sort of equilibrium that's good for us. Now, in American society today, this is all out of whack right now, because in some regards, we have too much socialism. We have government telling you what to do really in your business, making things inefficient, making things impractical in some areas. And in other areas, you have the Old West, sort of the gunslingers of corporate America, not only getting away with murder, but telling the government what to do. The very police dogs of big business are in their pockets. So we clearly have things all out of whack. It's not that we're too socialist or too libertarian today. It's that we're both at the same time in the wrong areas. So it needs to be recalibrated. That's clearly what is needed. Now, I want to mention, though, what I see as a third element to this dichotomy, which needs to be noted because it's balanced a lot of things out in the past. There is no ideological balancing act for greed destroying society. If money is the commanding force of society, you will always have corruption, no matter what. And some societies have given into it. It's like, well, corruption is the way. We always pay off the cops. That's the only way you get out of anything. So there has to be a third element of political philosophy that's also in the equation helping. And I would say it may be considered to be Buddhism at the base. A kind of self-reflectiveness, a limiting of the ego, the cognitive biases, trying to really soften your own animal nature to be more civilized. I would take it even further and say, hey, let's look at Zen Buddhism, which came out of Japan, and the samurai culture. Samurai is a phenomenal example of an honor culture where they care more about their honor and their sense of pride and dignity and family honor than they do about making money in this very moment, getting the best deal on that. I mean, you have people who will basically deliberately get the worst side of the deal in order to save face, in order to feel that they have been honorable. That's not very American today, is it? Americans today are kind of more hustlers than anything else, except in places where you still have those honor cultures more deeply rooted. Germany is historically another honor culture, and you see it in their manufacturing. The Germans care more about the integrity of their product than they do about how much money they make. Even if they're not making a lot of money, they do it well because they identify with the product. This is my work, the work of my hands. It must be excellent. And that's why Germany is such a powerhouse manufacturer in the world today. A lot of Americans, the plurality of white Americans, are German ancestry. So we have a lot of these elements in America. A lot of people who really do care about craftsmanship and identify with their work. But it doesn't seem to be the dominant ideology today. We're sort of throwing that out more and more. People are being encouraged to hustle, make money. And maybe that's been in the culture for 500 years, really. The first Americans maybe were hustlers. So this is the element that I think maybe is unequivocally what needs to be boosted the most. Because debating libertarian versus socialism and how much we balance between those two extremes, that is a lot of detail to work in. But for sure, we want to boost our sense of morality, our sense of dignity, of self. That for certain is something we need more of. And what that does is it buffers against greed and corruption. Those politicians aren't there for the buck, but they really care about integrity, and they will not sell out. They're like, I would rather resign than be part of this corruption. Well, then you've got blockades to money controlling the whole system and greed dominating society. That's what we need. It's none of them are good to take care of everything all by themselves. But I think we need to consider all three of those situations. And I think it's fun to look at it as three different religious ideologies, if you will, even though one could easily argue that any religious ideology brings a moral function to it. I think that the deeper sense of integrity is important, because Christianity has been largely watered down, I guess, or it's oversimplified to say these are the laws, these are the morality, this is what you follow. And I think Buddhism has a much more nuanced take on that. It's like you discover your own morality. You discover your morality through giving up the laws people taught you growing up, and you discover who you are as a person, and that tells you how to really be a person of integrity. And Christianity certainly can teach that too in certain elements, but a lot of people are still sort of infantile in their approach to Christianity, and they get a real, I'm a child and I'll do what I say. I do what I'm told kind of mentality. And there's the magical thinking thing that happens too, and that also is an infantile kind of issue. But we gotta have all these three. We gotta have all these three, I think, in order to balance our society today.